Good evening and welcome to Success in the City. My name's Helen Webster and I'm with the lovely
Sandra Scott, and we have the most amazing guest today, the inspirational
Gary Millar, apparently. I'm not sure about inspirational, but I do my best.
Very much so, very much.
So I did type charismatic when I said who was on our show tonight. I said the charismatic Gary Millar.
I really like that. But you know, we're all charismatic in some way if we have the right audience and the right kind of environment. So I've just listened to you two, Sandra Scott and Helen Webster from Success in the City. And it was like listening to, it's the wrong gender, but like Philip Schofield and Holly on the morning TV, or Lorraine and somebody, or that Alison, the lovely new presenter. I just love her. That's charismatic. But you two are charismatic as well.
Oh, thank you. And we do crack up laughing like Phil and Holly as well.
You do, I know. And you've just been showing us your cats as well.
Oh, yeah, I forgot because you didn't have your camera. Yeah, because he's a nuisance because I haven't been in today and he's just appeared. That's Eddie the cat.
I love cats, but I'm allergic to them now. And I can tell you a very quick story. So many years ago, our next door neighbor in just off the Belmont Road, next to the old Leo's, the supermarket, and the Barker and Dobson Sweet Factory in Ogden's, or the tobacco place. Our next door neighbor left, just disappeared, and they left behind them a cat, and the cat was called Lucy. And Lucy kind of adopted us. We never adopted her. That was for Stephen and I. And she moved in. And about 6 weeks later, she had babies. She had little kittens. And about 6 months after that, she had more kittens.
Nightmare.
So our friends adopted Lucy's kittens. And then she had more, of course. So she had 6. All were adopted. She had another 6, and 2 of them got adopted because you've only got so many friends that want cats. Yeah. So we were left with 4 and Lucy herself. And sadly, it's then that I discovered that the kitten fur was bad for my eyes. And I actually became allergic to cats. So sadly, we had to get them adopted through the RSPCA. But we took Lucy back to get looked after by the pet doctor, the vet, down in Eaton Road. They changed her name from Lucy to Loose Lucy because she was pregnant again.
I think that's quite judgmental, Gary.
It wasn't me. It was a vet that said it. I loved our Lucy.
I know a song,
exactly. Yeah, that could be a comedy show. Yeah,
that could.
I love Lucy.
A screenplay. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Dave Verbeek's listening in, and he says, "Hola from sunny Mallorca. Have a great show.
Hola
today.
Practicing his Spanish.
Hopefully he's practicing his Spanish. Yeah. So we do a shout out to the kids. What young people, little people have done amazing things this week. San, I'm going to pass to you first.
Okay.
You got any little people?
Yep. I'd like to give a shout out, not so little because she's a teenager, to Olivia, the girl who was sick after the lesson last week. I didn't make it. But anyway, she came top of the class for Spanish on Friday. And the reason why I'm made up with this is because she had no confidence and she thought she was rubbish at Spanish. And she was really shocked she got full marks. She got for her test. I was absolutely made up. And it wasn't, and as I said to her, she's very clever, but we did everything on flashcards for her online because that's her choice. That's what she likes to do, how she likes to learn. So I said, okay. So we put everything on flashcards for her. And she's introduced me to this new thing called Blue Kit, which I'm using, which all the kids like. So I'm very delighted and I can't wait to use that as well. So massive, massive shout out to Olivia. As I said to her, I'm stealing money from your parents because you're that clever. You don't need any lessons. So there we go.
Well done, Olivia. Amazing. Gary, any young people, little people that you want to give a shout out to?
the whole of the city, particularly those that may be at an enhanced learning school, whether it be places like Sandfield Park or Palmerston or Abbotsleigh or Bankview or Aigburth High. And there are others, many others, and all the Sencos and all the Sen people at school, because my brother is disabled. He's thalidomide. He cannot speak. He cannot hear. And I kind of was brought up in that kind of environment. And I did a tweet over the weekend, and the mother of one of the girls that I worked with when I was Lord Mayor of this amazing city, the young Lord Mayor attended Sandfield Park. And Sarah is her name. I won't give her last name, but Sarah. A big shout out to her. And her mother said to me, and her mother I didn't actually get to meet very much, but her mother said, "You might remember my daughter. She was Down syndrome, and she became young Lord Mayor." And I actually remember her not just because she was young Lord Mayor, but I visited Sandfield Park's school in Alder Hey Hospital. So a big shout out to all the children that are at Alder Hey and all their parents that are kind of worried about their health. Because I visited the school and the chair of governors kind of gave me a tour. And at the end of the tour, she gave me a present, and it was a painting by Sarah to thank me for being so nice to her when she was young Lord Mayor of the city.
Oh, how lovely.
And so it was great to see Sarah blossom as a youngster. And she did an amazing job. But she gave me this painting. And it's over there. I can see it now, just sitting there.
I love that.
Mother said, "You might not remember my daughter." Of course I do, because she's just amazing. So every young girl, young boy, young adult, every school child, because no matter what your background is, doesn't matter who you are, you will become something wonderful. You are something wonderful. You might not know it yet, but actually with the right kind of mentoring, teaching, inspirational role models, you can be anything you want to be, including Sarah. And of course, I remember Sarah so well.
And that's quite funny, because my shout out this week is to our two young people. So we've got two people with us in our office who are doing traineeship, and then they're going to be and they're with TPM, so our gorgeous guest Brian Quinn, who was on a couple of months ago. So they're doing their learning traineeship with Brian Quinn, and they're doing their work placement with Sandra and I. And on Friday, Brian come in, he said, "Can I borrow them for 12 o'clock? I said, yeah, of course you can. Didn't know what it was for. They both come back in the office with a certificate, and they'd got traineeship of the month, and their teacher couldn't choose, because they normally just have one, and she couldn't choose out of the class, and she said, "I can't choose out of the two of them because they've both been amazing. Can I give it to both of them?" So they got a gorgeous certificate, and they both got £10 each as well, which is like dead cool, isn't it? And it was just, and they've both got little stories themselves, and for them both to just get that certificate was just, so we had Donut Friday, didn't we? We went to Krispy Kreme donuts and bought donuts and celebrated. So it was just amazing, and the power of recognition, to say that these people have done amazing was just it was lovely. They were buzzing, weren't they?
They're all, the pair of them are just fabulous.
So well done to Emmett and Beth. Great shout out to our young people. So success personally this week, San. What's your personal success?
Well, you're going to speak about, I know what happened today, which was a brilliant day. So it's been going well. I've been doing quite well, but this is a trivial thing yet amusing. So yesterday when we had exercises at 6:30 in the morning in West Derby, had the session. It was quite cold. I came out and I couldn't get into my car. It didn't work, and I was like, and I didn't have a tyre on for the temperature outside at that time of the day. So I was very fortunate. You had a 30-minute break before your next client and ran me home. So I got ready. And then later on, you said it might just be the cold, and I wasn't in the office yesterday, which was good. Anyway, when I went back, the thing worked, but it hadn't even worked with the key, so I knew it wasn't the battery of the fob. So I got back in my car, which is really just hanging by a thread at the moment, but at least I got home. So it's the small things, you know. Watch Gary Millar now come out with something amazing to that. I've secured a deal with whatever. No, so that's what I'll let you speak about today, because that's been a great success, and I love that as well.
Yeah. Go on, Gary. What's your success this week for you personally?
Every day is a success when I, at my age, wake up.
Like Oscar said that, didn't he?
I met. I've actually had a major success tonight, but I met a lovely, lovely lady, an old friend of mine that I know through the Linda McCartney Centre, and she was a volunteer there after suffering from breast cancer many years ago, and we've kept in touch ever since, from about 2006, 2007, and she's absolutely amazing. And she was sacked. She was kicked out of her job 2 weeks ago. Nothing to do with her at all. And it's hit her really badly. So she came to see me at the Fashion Hub at the weekend. And she was very teary, very emotional. And I was so upset for her, without giving her name away. That wouldn't be the right thing to do. But I put something on Facebook about this person, this woman, who deserves a chance in life. And I must have got about 20 private messages of people wanting to help. And she's had an interview yesterday. It wasn't quite for her, but other people are kind of talking to her about giving her support. And it's just the kind of, and then we'll come back to something else. It's just that kind of wanting to help people, because it's no effort to kind of connect, but not expecting. And I don't want anybody to go, that's brilliant, Gary, because it's not. It's just us being ourselves. It's just us being nice to each other, being nice to friends and helping friends, because I'd hope that she would help me in my time of need. And even though I don't expect that, but I hope all of us kind of just use our connections to kind of just hopefully change somebody's life, and that change might be putting a smile on their face and giving them food on the table. It's that serious, to be honest. But today, I've just been appointed part-time chief executive officer of a charity that looks after children who've come out of care. So that's really, and it's quite important, really important to me. And we're launching a project that's doing next Thursday at the Fashion Hub. A major project working with people that you know. And it's really, it's working with the ADHD Foundation. It's working with the Women's Organization. It's working with our friend Ali McGrath. It's working with Tony Lloyd. It's working with the Learning Foundry and Joanne Abrams. It's working with other registered social landlords and their kind of people. And going to impact on at least 100 people a year.
Amazing.
Love it. Isn't it? And it's such a good start in life like that, you know. Can I just say, Gary, just to reiterate, my success was getting back into my car. So thanks for that.
Well, that getting back into the car is good. I mean, I've had minor successes today, but do you know what? Whilst we've got this audience, this is really important. We should all do our utmost to help Sandra get home or get in her car. That is a success. But actually, you did say Helen run you home. You said that you got help. And actually, what I want, my success is I want other people to be part of. Can you give, like Brian Quinn, could you give a care leaver some kind of opportunity, mentoring, buddying, employability skills. How do I do an interview? How do I dress? How do I do a CV? How do I pass a maths exam or an English exam or a Spanish exam? We can all help each other. My success is making those connections. It's not about becoming a CEO. It's only a title. It's nothing important. But what it does is other people kind of use it as a hook to gravitate towards helping a 16-year-old get an opportunity in life if they've got autism, Asperger's, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, Tourette's, acquired brain injury, come out of care, 16-year-old, going out into a cold, sometimes horrible world. Sandra, you, Helen, Brian Quinn, David Verberg, sitting in Mallorca, wherever he is, we all have got a role to play. And it's about waking up in the morning, having a smile on our face, and kind of picking up the phone and actually speaking to a friend and say, could you help this person get a job? Could you help this person get some training? Could you help this person get into their car? Or, more importantly, put food on the table and feed the family, look after themselves. That's what we can all do. So my success is getting up in the morning. That's what I said first.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And, it's important to help everyone, isn't it? Because a guy, we were at this event today and a guy came over and I saw he had food and he was like trying to get a glass of water. And I said, would you like we had bottles of water. We were giving out all healthy stuff today. And we said, do you want to? And he went, and I said, would you like one for your colleague as well? He wasn't from here. He was absolutely astounded. And he went, well, that's very kind of it. I said, well, you should just help everyone if you can. Like, just like Norm, we all live our lives like that. It runs a lot better, doesn't it? Let's face it. And it's not to get something back. It's just because it's the right thing to do if you can. Do you know what I mean? So what was your success today, Helen?
So we were exhibiting at the Liverpool Business Schools Managers Conference in Anfield, which, as a Liverpool fan, when you walk in, it's just an amazing, the ground is beautiful, the stadium's amazing. And I think our success was that, everybody was amazing and we were able to, it's just lovely to be back out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Seeing people again. And, So I think our success was being able to get out and about and showing our amazing products. We've got a few people listening in, and the comments are coming in. So Paul Heron, happy wedding anniversary for, I think it was Wednesday, and I met Paul. He won Radio City's Cash for Kids Winner Wedding, and I trained the bridal squad, and that's how I originally met Paul. So hello to Helen, Sandra and Gary. Fran McNichol, super surgeon, author, past guest. Hi, what a great show. Peter Lloyd, Mr. Marathon Man, he did the London Marathon, and he says, good evening. I'm going to say good evening to Gertie Robinson today. Yes, we're doing good evening, so she's deaf. And I'm going to say to Joe Galbraith, inspirational as always, Gary. What about me and Sam? Just saying. So we're going to play this or that with you, Gary. So Sandra is going to ask you and I'll ask you and Sandra. And then we're going to hand it over to you and find out all the amazing things that we've been talking about. So, Sandy, going first or me?
I'll go first if that's okay. Bearing in mind what you've got going in your other venue at the Fashion Hub, live theatre or sing-along a musical film?
Both.
Which one?
Both. No, this is important. So sing along to a musical is live theatre because you are dressing up, you're performing, you're participating in what's going on the screen. So imagine The Greatest Showman or Rocky Horror or White Christmas, and somebody comes on. It might be, I don't know, on White Christmas could be Bing Crosby, for example. And start singing that song, and you go, oh, and then you sing along wearing a Fair Isle sweater or a reindeer outfit. That's theatre. So all of that together is so. But I love live theatre, but it doesn't allow you to participate in the same way as sitting with a bunch of friends who are enjoying the song and getting involved, engaged with it, whilst they're all looking silly or beautiful, handsome in their outfits. And then you have a competition. Who's won as the best dressed? That's not centered on the stage. It's not Bing Crosby. It's now about the people in the audience, like Gillian Wilson, for example, or Rachel, her daughter, and so on, or Ali McGrath, or Diane Cannon.
Cannon, I was going to say Di Cannon dressed on the Moulin Rouge. She nailed it.
Oh, and she did. She was brilliant at it. So they're all important.
Okay, and remember we went to see that Singing in the Rain the other
That was
year.
Unbelievable. One of the best things I've ever seen in my life. So anyway, before you're not allowed to tell anymore. Okay, right. Because my next question is Singing in the Rain or Wizard of Oz? San?
Oh, okay. Overall, Wizard of Oz. Because there's so many lines from that are just amazing. You're not in Kansas anymore. Fly, my pretties, fly. I can go on. I can quote the film verbatim. I loved it as a child, but I've got a thing about egg timers because of it.
What a phobia. Is it like you don't like them?
Yeah, when my mother couldn't bring an egg timer in the house, I'd go ballistic when I was a kid, honestly. Like, mental.
Wow.
That is
weird.
When the egg timer goes, Dorothy gets it, doesn't she? And she's watching the egg timer constantly.
So what about you, Gary? Singing in the Rain or Wizard of Oz?
Well, since I'm meeting Gene Kelly's wife on Monday.
Of course you are. Go on.
Singing in the Rain. I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Is it coming back?
No, but she is coming back. And it's to do with the ADHD Foundation. And it's to do with the umbrellas in Church Alley. And it's to do with the new project that I'm leading on.
Brilliant. She was amazing, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah, she spoke to everyone at that event.
She did.
So lovely, you know.
She was lovely, yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Joe Galbraith, who's listening in, she says that Singing in the Rain night was amazing. It was, and we were firing questions over to each other, weren't we? Okay, San, your next one.
Okay, you didn't pick one then. Okay, tulips or sunflowers? Nice and easy.
For who?
Daddy.
Sunflowers. Daddy. Sunflowers.
Like
Love
that?
them. Yeah.
Okay.
They're big and bright and yellow. They're like the sunshine is shining on us in our gardens. But they also relate back to some of our sunflower charity, raising money for those with breast cancer, etc. So actually, straight away, sunflowers, because of partly to do with that. Yeah.
Sunflowers, the happiest flower that ever lived.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I love both. Sunflowers last longer than tulips, but they take a lot of watering, having grown the amount I did last summer.
Okay.
And that they are arduous, but they are lovely and shiny. Okay, cool. You'll go, Hal.
Okay. Wake up early or stay up late, San?
Wake up early or stay up late. So I used to be a night owl, definitely. But actually, I'm sort of both, really, don't I? I get up dead early and go to bed quite late. Let's face it, I don't sleep so much. But probably overall, if I had to pick now, it would be. If I had to choose, it'd be getting up early, because you've got, by the time 8:30 comes, you've done loads. If you're up at 5:30, you've just achieved so much, haven't you? We were at Anfield at 7 o'clock this morning, weren't we? And we got the sunrise. It was gorgeous and everything. And you can get so much done by just in a few hours, really. So what about you?
Can I just say, there are other football teams, including Everton and Tranmere Rovers. Anfield is not the only place in town. Just being impartial for our viewers.
But it's where we were today.
I know. I'm a night owl, so I work best in the evening. But for the last month, because we've got a big project on, I've been getting up, or I've been waking up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. And you're right, you can get so much done before 8:30 when there's no phones ringing and there's nobody interrupting you. But I am a night owl, so my head is more awake at night, whereas in the morning, I'm quite grumpy. And I need at least 2 cups of coffee. Yeah. don't talk to me first thing in the morning unless I really have to be awake. But it takes 2 coffees to get me awake.
Oh, Helen and I was not told off, but it was commented about us being a bit too happy today.
Yeah, we got told off for being too happy, didn't we? Yeah.
Won't talk about that because that was the embarrassing moment.
Which we'll talk about in a bit. I was the same. I used to be a proper night owl. I was like a bit of a vampire. I used to be awake of a night and sleep of a day, because when you work in a pub, that's what happens. But now, I think I just get that excited for waking up every morning and just being alive. So yeah, I'd probably say mornings now, which is probably a massive shock to my mum if she's listening in. So singing or dancing, San?
Oh, okay. So I love singing. As you know, I sing very, very badly. So the car is the best place for me without anyone else in it. And I sing along to everything like, ah, at the top of my voice. And often I have people at the lights going, ah, like that as I'm singing away. So that's quite cool. I do enjoy singing. I like dancing as well. I used to love dancing. But if I had to pick one or the other, it's singing, even though I'm not great at it.
Okay. What about you, Gary? Singing or dancing?
I'm the same as singing. I used to love dancing. I when I was 16, 17, 18, into my 20s, I dance and love every minute of it. And I couldn't sing. And yet, fast forward.
But you can sing now.
Well, fast forward to now, I was told I couldn't sing. Singing along with Stephen, I've discovered a voice. And I can now sing. Steve sings much, much better, but yeah, he is really good. But
hang on. Sandra and I are absolutely shocking at singing. Maybe, San, if we sing with Steve, we might find our voice.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting? If you got me to sing without a Stephen next to me, I'd be rubbish. You put Stephen next to me, and what the difference is, I can hear the tone changes and I can mimic them, and I can also see when he's moving his mouth. I can synchronize with him, so I get the speed right, I get the tone right, I get the pitch right. Get me on my own, it's everywhere. It's an absolute mess. So you need somebody to kind of lead you, and then you harmonize in a choir.
Gary,
we can't harmonise between each other, can we?
We've clearly just found who's going to lead us and help us to sing, because we want to learn one song. We want to be able to stand up and do a brilliant song on karaoke, like a duet.
You found a choir or something? Is that what you've done?
No, we just want to sing ourselves.
No, find a choir. Go and find somebody like Wendy and Billy Hoy from Sing Me, Merseyside, or Sue Granger from So Choir, or a choir with no name. They're all brilliant, and each one of them will teach you the skills of harmonizing, keeping together, remembering words, and confidence as well. You'd be brilliant.
Don't they evict you from the choir if you can't sing?
No.
I mean,
well, that's the choir we need to find.
The choir that will not evict you. That could be your new name.
We could start a choir, son.
Mr. Cunningham at Notre Dame used to come around and he'd go, who is it? Someone in this area. And I used to think, he can't mean me. And then in a while, I thought, oh, he does mean me. And then I'd go like that. And he wouldn't say it. And in the end, I just backed out gracefully.
So, Sandra, you teach language.
Yeah.
Do you try and sing in Spanish or French or some other language?
No.
Because you in a Spanish song?
You should. Yeah. No. Apparently, people that think they cannot sing, when they're actually singing to a foreign language, sing better, sing differently than they would in English. You should try it.
Well, let's do a bit of Julio. We'll practice in the office.
Okay, you can listen tomorrow, Helen, and you can be the Friday rather than be the judge.
Let's go Julio on Friday. That's all we're going to listen to. So we've got a vinyl only office. Let's get Julio on the vinyl.
Brilliant.
Right. Okay. That's us all done, isn't it?
Out of time. Yeah.
I know. Okay. You can introduce Gary. It's over to Gary now, and he's got about 20 minutes now.
I know, normally we have about 40, Gary. So I'm absolutely ecstatic that you've come on our show this evening. You are one of the most interesting people, Gary Millar, and you've done so much for our city that a lot of people aren't aware of. And I know you came to the city, as you said, when you came to study at John Moores University. And like many students, I think we have the highest retention of students who come from outside the area who remain here because they love it so much, because they love the culture, etc. So we're very, very fortunate to keep and maintain great talent in the city, and you've done so much for it. I'm particularly fascinated. First of all, I heard you speak at an event when I was working for the ADHD Foundation to foster carers, and you spoke about your own experience, which I thought was really good and poignant. And one of the things you said was, it's the reason why, and you spoke about having to be well dressed and things like that. And you and I have a parallel over that, because I'm the same about a comment someone made, and it's affected me my whole life. So that was very interesting. And secondly, also what you've done with your relationships with China, and with twins with Shanghai, etc., and getting all the different things with trade, all the effort, the behind the scenes things that people are completely unaware of, the cultural diplomacy, etc., that enabled us to have the terracotta warriors here. That was a big coup for the city, etc. And then thirdly, what you've done with the fashion hub in that area, because that was a very, very rundown area. I was a Saturday girl years ago at El Kilos, which everyone knows as Abacans now. And I used to have to run up to Kempton Street to get stock for the trimmings, as we used to call it, in kilos. So I know that area quite well for sewing, etc. So I just think you've done so much, and there's so much I don't know about now as well. So we have got about 20 odd minutes to go with that. So welcome so much, Gary Millar, and thank you for stepping in this evening.
Sandra and Helen, thank you for the invitation. I didn't know I was going to do 20 minutes. So I'll try and be focused. And I will kind of give you some background to where I came from, which kind of helps you understand where I am today and where I want to be. So I was born in Leith in Edinburgh, in a room and kitchen where mum and dad slept in a bed behind a curtain in an alcove in what was a living room, kitchen, and not a toilet, but a bathroom. And what I mean by that is every week I would be bathed up until the age of about 3.5 in a ceramic tin bath. I remember it on the stainless steel sink, looking out to the back garden, or the back green as it was called, where one of the outdoor toilets were. We also had an outdoor toilet on the landing. So we had 2 toilets, an ensuite, which is in the landing meaning the main stairs. So not in the apartment, not in the flat.
No.
My mum and dad slept in the alcove, and I slept in the single bedroom, sharing that room with my middle brother, who was my youngest brother then, Norman, and my granddad. So there was actually mum and dad, me and my brother, and my granddad staying in this tiny place. And the ceramic bath was made of, it was white ceramic with a blue trim. And even today I can see one chip out of the top of the edge of the bath. And we used to have a bath once a week. And I remember they used to pour the hot water from the black grate that was used as an oven, as where you boiled the kettle and you kept the place warm. So that was my kind of background. And we moved from there to a prefab that was built after the Second World War. Strangely enough, it was meant to be a temporary accommodation, and they're still there today in a place from Leith to Birdie House. And I used to remember in Birdie House, we lived next to a couple of farms. So every day, my adventures at the age of 4, 5, and 6 was with my cousins and my brother. We'd go and we'd smell donkey poo and the cattle poo in the local farms. And it was just like, but it's like the most beautiful memories of sunflowers and wheat growing tall and having to move through it. And it was the best existence where we had an indoor bathroom, toilet, 3 bedrooms near my gran and granddad, who would sometimes babysit. Now, fast forward to 3 years ago, I deliberately drove past Birdie House to see how it's changed since I was a young boy. Those donkey poo smelling farms is now a B&Q and an IKEA. The farms are gone. It's become industrial, warehousing and whatever. So that was Birdie House. And then I went to Birdie House Primary. That was my first school. And then for some reason, I went to Gracemount Primary because we moved. And then I went to Sheen's Primary. And that was 3 primary schools, but I actually attended 8 primary schools because from the age of 3 to the age of 11, I was in and out of formal, official, and unofficial foster care. And so I would actually stay with my Auntie Sandra. Auntie Sandra was interesting. She's sadly dead today, but she was a big Elvis fan, and her and her husband, Uncle Tam, T-A-M, Thomas Tam, was in the Black Watch, and he was a man's man. And he used to wear the kilt, and he used to go into the army, and he actually was one of the soldiers that was in the prison looking after Rudolf Hess. So Rudolf Hess was in World War, and that was his kind of background. So in the army, doing stuff in Germany and whatever. And those two like to drink. So at the age of about 10, or 9, 10, 11, as I was unofficially being fostered by them, whilst mum was in and out of hospital, they used to drink a lot. They used to go to the clubs a lot. And I would babysit their 2 very young children. Remember, I was a child myself. I was 9, 10, 11 years old. And they used to come back from the pub, and they'd open the windows in Granton in Edinburgh, and they'd actually pump out those windows Elvis songs. So Blue Suede Shoes, Jailhouse Rock, all of the above, Blue, Hawaii and all that. Watch the movies with them. And they were the absolute biggest sweethearts. They were so nice. But I shouldn't have been looking after their children. They should have been looking after me. And the reason I say all this, because that was part of the unofficial primary school stroke foster care, because my mum, and I didn't realize until I was a lot older, suffered from, I knew she suffered from it, but I didn't know why. From the age of 3, my mum was disappearing all the time. And I didn't know why then. And when I was 5, in Birdie House, near these smelly farms, I was rushed into hospital to get my adenoids taken out. And as I got them taken out, I came out of the general anesthetic, and then the nurse came up to me with this bundle of something, rags, and it was a shawl with a baby in a crash helmet, and discovered for the first time that I had another brother, a younger brother, who then was 2 years old. And I didn't know. And he was born thalidomide. No ears, no balance, hence the crash helmet. Could not speak, could not hear. They thought he was going to die. So rather than telling myself and my middle brother Norman about Leslie, they just kept it was a family secret because he's going to die. So why tell people about it? But my mum took it very badly. She had obviously taken the thalidomide drug. My dad wasn't very supportive. Some members of the family weren't supportive. So she had a really tough pregnancy, post-pregnancy, to actually when she died in 2002, she suffered badly all of her life, to the point that she was in and out of mental hospitals. She was having electroshock treatment. She was alcoholic. And because of all of that, I was in and out of foster care. And when I was in and out of foster care, it was always hand-me-down clothes. We had no money as a family. And because I was wearing hand-me-down clothes and I was going to different primary schools, I was always the outsider. So I would get bullied a lot. And I'd wear smelly, fraying clothes. I remember a red jumper, and I remember picking at the sleeve, and it was just like I'm watching myself pulling the wool. And then, of course, it was coming down here, so I had a big hole here. But they made me wear that at school for like 6 months. And I don't think it was washed. So I probably wasn't the most hygienic of children then. And obviously, I wasn't that bright. And I remember when I was in my last primary and I was put in the corner of the room with my back to the class because I was stupid. The teacher called me stupid. So I really thought I wasn't very bright. And if they put me through the 11 plus then, I would have failed it abysmally. I mean, it really would have been an absolute disaster. And I worry about children today being forced and stressed to go through examinations at that young age, because if it was me, I wouldn't have got anywhere. And I went to secondary school, and I was 12 years old, and it was Tynecastle, next to Murrayfield, next to the heart of Midlothian football ground. And I was there from the age of 12 until the age of 18, almost 19. And in the first year at my secondary school, I won the English prize, the art prize, the German prize, and the history prize. And I won one other, and I've forgotten which one it was. I wasn't stupid at all. I was in a different school, and for the first time, I was at home with my parents, still not great, but also I was wearing, strangely, a shirt and tie. A shirt and tie that I bought. Not my parents, not my family, or it wasn't a hand-me-down. I bought it. And I bought it because at the age of 12, I got a job delivering newspapers. And at the age of 12, the lady who ran the Silver Cross pram shop near where we lived met me in the butcher shop as I am buying my dad and my brother's Norman's tea. And I remember what I was buying. I was buying a quarter of Hazlitt. I don't know if you can get Hazlitt in England, but it was Hazlitt. Spicy, cheap meat slice. And I was going to have spaghetti hoops. And I was actually cooking the tea that night. So I used my money to buy our food to take home to cook for my dad and my brother. Mother was back in hospital. And this lady came into the shop and she goes, "Oh, what a lovely smile." And actually, I then discovered the butcher called me Smiler, and it became my nickname because I smiled all the time as a child from the age of 12, maybe earlier, right through to when I left school. And she gave me a job. She gave me a job to run her errands. So I was delivering newspapers, and then I was working for her because she took pity on me because she knew that we had no money. And her previous errand boy was a very famous James Bond from Scotland called Sean Connery. So she went from Sean Connery to Gary Millar to do her errands, which is like, wow. So I got my second job, and then I went into Benson's supermarket, which was along from this butcher's. And I actually ended up as a 13-year-old boy with my little fingers in a bacon slicing machine, cutting Hazlitt for other people to take home for their tea. And I worked there and became a manager of that supermarket. It was really a grocer's when I was about 17, 18 years old during the school holidays. So I had myself actually had 4 jobs in the end. And why? Because I didn't want to be embarrassed or bullied by wearing dirty, hole-ridden, smelly clothes. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't have a ceramic bath that we used once a week, but I had a bath every single day. And I did well at school. I did well up until about 16, and then I discovered discos, and then I discovered girls, and I discovered drink. And then between the age of 16 and 18, I didn't get all the results I wanted, so I didn't go to do architecture at university. So I went into the civil service instead, and I was headhunted in Edinburgh at the Ancient Monuments Division, and I was taken to London, and I worked in the House of Commons and in Whitehall for first a Labour minister and then a Tory minister. And it wasn't a political position, it was a civil service position. And I was the official meter and greeter, filing clerk, and tea maker for the minister. And I did that for 3.5 years. And in that time, I met my soulmate, now my husband. And that was 40 years ago this year, 40 years ago. But my contract with the civil service in London had to end after 3 years, and I was there for 3.5. So I went back to Edinburgh. My husband now, Stephen, was distraught. I was distraught. We would see each other every week, every other weekend. Either I'd go to London or he'd come to Edinburgh, where I was back in not the Ancient Monuments Division, but the Historic Buildings Council. So I went from ancient to historic. And he phoned me one day and he said, do you know how I've been trying to get a job in Edinburgh or Glasgow because we can be together for the rest of our lives? I said, yeah. He said, well, the English civil service won't work with the Scottish civil service. So he was with the Home Office. He said, so I've got a job with the Home Office closer to Edinburgh. And guess where it was? Liverpool. In Bootle, in the Home Office. And he became the youngest of his grade, a very senior grade, in the civil service in Liverpool back then. And he eventually said, I thought it was closer. It's not that much closer. It's like an hour's difference. It was 5 hours travel compared to 6 hours travel. So he said, why don't you come to Liverpool and go to university, go to the Polytechnic? And I said, what should I do? And he said, well, do what I do. I said, I couldn't do what you do, because Stephen helped write the police national computer system that they used to tell you if your number plate from your car, when it used to ring up from the car or the radio, is it taxed? Has it got MOT, etc.? He wrote that system.
Wow.
And I said, I can't be a programmer like you. You're bright. I said, I'm not as good. He said, well, computing is the future. And I said, are you sure? And he said, it is. So I came to Liverpool. I got accepted by Liverpool Polytechnic, now John Moore University. And I studied for an HND, a BTEC HND. And I got a distinction in computing and business. And I used to be able to program in zeros and ones, in special coding, binary, hexadecimal, COBOL, BASIC, Fortran, all of the above. I could do it. I did it really well. And I left the Polytechnic and I created my own business, my first business. And I had to close it 6 months later because I had a massive falling out with Apple. You know Apple, don't you? Well, in those days, they had a great machine called an Apple IIe, and I sold Apple IIes from my own company with software that I wrote the world's first golf club administration system and sold it to lots of golf clubs. And then Apple pulled the machine. They made it obsolete, and I couldn't sell the software anymore. So my business, the first rule in business is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, I put all my eggs in one BASIC, which is basic language, on an Apple, which couldn't be used on any other machine. So actually I had no business anymore. So I got employed by a partnership between the Polytechnic and the University of Liverpool called the Merseyside Innovation Centre. And I taught for them people who didn't want to learn about computing programs like WordPerfect, Lotus 123, SuperCalc. They wanted to play spaces instead, which is space intelligence. And I did that for 2 years. And in the 2 years, I got headhunted by Apple, and I became their business development manager on secondment. and I eventually hated it. And one day I'll tell you why, but I actually grew back in love with Apple. But then I got headhunted by another business, and I left the innovation center, and I became marketing manager for a group of companies. And I was also responsible for setting up and running their financial accounting systems called Sage and their networking system called Novell. And I run all of that. I became their group marketing director. I then bought one of their companies. I then reinvented that company, sold it 3 years later after I invented 2 products and made it the 3rd largest in Europe. And I didn't know the product, I didn't know the industry, but I very quickly learned the industry, and I was doing things that nobody else was doing because they did it like they'd always been doing it for like 100 years. This new naive person came along and said, well, why can't we have bright yellow stair edgings? So when you see the bright hazard stair edgings on trains, taxis, and buses, I invented that many years ago by mistake. I actually invented it for McDonald's restaurants to go on their steps with bright yellow and bright red corporate colors, like Ronald McDonald. That's what I created it for, but it became something bigger and different and better. And I also invented a glow in the dark stair edging. And when I did that, a company came along and said, we'd like to buy you. And I said, no. And then they offered me more money and I said, no. And eventually I said, yes. And I sold that. And then I created my own computing business where I used to teach. I used to write computer programs. I used to install networks. I used to help people with their brochure design, their banner design, things that I've gone back to doing today. Yeah. And I had that business from 1992, and I've still got it today. And it runs the Fashion Hub, and it also does, again, now that I've retired from politics, brochure design, web applications, and a whole batch of other things, but mainly about special projects and project management, because I sold the computing arm of that business in 2004 because I got quite ill. I have a long-term liver problem since I was a kid, and I forgot, and then the alcohol made it worse. So I stopped drinking alcohol about 17 years ago. I didn't have a problem with alcohol, but my liver did. And if I hadn't stopped, I would have died. So I sold that computing arm of my business, and I moved into business development, business growth, business leadership. And that introduced me to other projects and then charities. And I set up Ripples on the Mersey that became Dream High. I also set up with others, it wasn't just me, team effort always, Liverpool Habitat for Humanity that built the houses on Kingsley Road. That got me involved with some politicians who said I should stand. I stood for election. I joined as a Liberal Democrat councillor. I resigned when they didn't abolish tuition fees back in 2010. I resigned and went to my original party, which was Labour. And 2 years later, I became Deputy Lord Mayor. My former colleagues voted for me to become Deputy Lord Mayor. And the following year, I became Lord Mayor of this amazing city. And it's fascinating for me that as an individual who is working class, very dysfunctional childhood, wore hand-me-down clothes, reinvented myself, found out I wasn't stupid because people told me I was and I could do better, come here and get a qualification, find my partner, Steve, that I've been with for 40 years, become Lord Mayor of the city as a gay man in a partnership. Do you know if I can do that? Anyone can do anything. And not if you put your mind to it, but just by being your authentic, genuine self, and by getting up in the morning and remembering to be nice. There's no effort in that. Smile. And my mantra on a daily basis, and I know you were going to ask me this question, but I'm just time. My mantra is pay it forward. And that pay it forward is expect no applause, expect no thank you. I don't deserve it. I don't need it. It is always about team effort. It's about collective responsibility. We all should work together. But actually, rather than thank me, Sandra, you go and help Helen. Helen, you help Sandra. You help Emma and your friend that you mentioned at the beginning, and Brian Quinn and all the others. But actually, all of us, Peter Lloyd, we all do stuff. Never expect an honor or an applause or an award, because the better applause and the better award is knowing that somebody has done something like you have done for another person, and then that other person does something else. So I now have what I basically run as a social enterprise is the Fashion Hub, and we have events and we incubate, we help and buddy and mentor people who have had tough times or who just want to improve their position by going into business. And I work with people like Ali McGrath and Gary Beggs and Don O'Bannon and a whole batch of others who kind of like me pay it forward. And back 6 years ago, I opened a business clinic to offer. I don't get paid. It was never get paid as a counsellor. You've been to it.
The business clinic, with Ali.
And I set that up. Well, I set that up, and I was on my own. And the first day, I got 25 people came to see me, all inspiring entrepreneurs, and they just wanted somebody to listen. And about 3 or 4 months later, I met Ali, who I knew already, but I met her, and she said, "Can I come and help?" And you know what? She's been there every single day with me to help anybody who's thinking about going into business. Because what we all need is a listening ear, a critical friend, non-judgmental, impartial, independent, who is there at the end of the phone or at the other end of that cup of coffee. And we've been doing that now since 2015, February the 5th, 2015, I've been doing it. Nobody gets paid to do it. It's all pro bono. We have now helped 2,600 and a bit people in that period. And if I look back and think of all the things that I've done, it's all the stuff that I've done where, in the old days, before mum and dad died, they both died within 6 weeks of each other in 2002. And my auntie Ina, my dad's sister, said, "What are you going to do to make a difference? You're now an orphan. What changes are you going to make?" And before that, it was like, get a really well-paid job, make money, great holidays, great house, and whatever. But that isn't important. Other people are important. So it made me rethink my whole life when they died. And actually, that's where the charities came from. That's where the politics came from. That's where the pay it forward comes from. And it is, as you get older, it is about put family and friends first and yourself. Try and find, I'm not good at this, a good life-work balance. My life is more about work. But actually, it's great fun. And today, I'm working with the ADHD Foundation, working with Cornerstones Foundation. I'm working with the Whitechapel Centre, the Michael Kozer Foundation. I'm leading as president of the Liverpool Commonwealth Association and the president of the Liverpool China Partnership. And you mentioned China before. I and the people around me are responsible not for buildings and developments and whatever else, which I got some criticism for, but actually working with universities, working with hospitals, working with small community organizations, working with community choirs, and I mean genuinely linking to overseas, and working with small and large businesses. And we've brought in collectively over 200 million in investment into the city, plus thousands of students who've chosen to come here because of what a great city it is. Not because of me, but because of Liverpool Football Club, because of the Beatles music, because of the waterfront, and because we are genuine. You mentioned it today about Anfield. You gave somebody water and their friend. We are officially the friendliest city in the United Kingdom, and now today the most visited city outside of Edinburgh and London, the two capitals, and then us, which just shows you what's special about the water in Liverpool. So going overseas, whether it be Portugal, the Commonwealth, Indonesia, New York, South Korea, China, and I've done all those for the city. It's not just been China. Is we've got to explore, and we've got to tell people what an amazing place we live in, because we need more money and more jobs and more people to come here and just do what you're doing now and have a big smile on our faces. Do you know what? That one smile becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 50, becomes thousands. So that's a quick run through of part of my life.
So I think what we're going to have to do is, because our time is up, unfortunately. I think we're going to have a part 2. Okay, so I think we're going to have a part 2 to tell us everything that you're doing. So Joe Galbraith says you need to write a book, and as you were talking, I was thinking exactly the same. And you've probably already halfway through writing one, but we have come to an end. Gary did say that is mantra that he lives by, and we're going to ask you to close the show with it again. I want to say a massive, massive thank you for giving your time. You're super busy, and it's lovely for you to give you your time. And we're going to ask you to give your time again, and we're going to book you in for part 2, where you can talk about the Fashion Hub and everything that's going on at the moment and all the amazing things that are going on. So I want to say a massive, massive thank you to Sandra, because you're amazing as always. Thank you massively to Gary for giving your time, and we're going to let you close the show with your super mantra.
So whatever you do, watch the movie, live by it, pay it forward, and I bet Dave Verberg and others will cry at the end because it's so emotional. Pay it forward, please.
Pay it forward. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.